He's gonna die. He's gonna fight me. He's something like me. He thinks he's awesome.
Hey everybody, this is me, Undead Viking. I'm talking to you today about this game called Henchmania. I don't have a box to show you, I do apologize, but the artwork for this game is fantastic, and you're going to see it on some of the cards here in a little bit. And I do go ahead and encourage you to go ahead and check out the game page over on BGG or the Kickstarter page. You can see that for yourself. Regardless, Henchmania is a game for 2 to 4 players where each person is trying to vie to be the most prestigious, person within the kingdom. And you're going to do that by sending your henchmen out to collect different people, different powers, different cards, different weapons, things like that you are going to then use to basically beat your opponents into submission and be the first person to achieve the 30-point victory points that you're trying to get to. I like games that have victory point limits that you're trying to shoot for. There's something to be said about just keep playing a certain number of rounds and then whoever has the most points wins the game at that point. But when you put a cap on it, when you say, okay, when you get to this, you win, I find that the tension in the game increases a little bit. And so that's one of those things that I really like. But regardless, let me show you how the game of Henchmania is played. Then we'll come back here and I'll talk a little bit more about why I dig it. Alright, cool. Alright, this is Henchmania. The game is for 2 to 4 players, as I said, and what I have in front of you is a prototype, so just bear in mind that this is probably not what the final game is going to look like. For example, I know the henchmen won't be represented by these cubes, but just keep that in mind as I show you how to play the game. What I have in front of you plays exactly the same as whatever the published version is going to look like. Alright, so to begin the game, each person just picks a color, whatever it is, you pick a first player, and then people are going to start placing their henchmen onto these locations on the board. When they place those their henchmen on those, you place them one at a time. I shouldn't have dropped all 3 of them, but as each person places a henchman onto a location on the board, they will be allowed to draw one of the cards that is situated by those locations on the board. This will create their hand for the second round of the game. The game lasts 4 turns, and there's 3 rounds in each turn. After the end of 4 turns, whoever has the most points win. If somebody manages to get to 30 points before the 4 turns go through, then you win the game with 30 points as well. But each one of these decks is, this is the castle deck, this is the armory deck, the church, the tavern, and the main square. Each one of these decks has its own kind of signature, if you will. And one of the cool things is that they actually do have to interact to be useful. Like, the armory has a lot of weapons and armor that are useful in duels, but in order to get duels, you have to get duel cards out of the main square. So you kind of have to weigh things back and forth. One of the ways you can earn a lot of points is you can put on a troubadour show at the castle, but you have to get those cards out of there. So there's lots of different ways you can make points and get points while playing the game, but you have to use a wide variety of the different cards. And this is a game that they do have a cards list here that is on the back of the rules. I'm not going to go through each and every single card that's located in the game, but I do invite you to go ahead and check out the rules and check out the rest of the game on BGG on the Kickstarter page if you want to delve into that. But this definitely is a time, if you're all new players and you haven't played it, each person should take a few moments to kind of go through each one of the decks just to see what kind of cards are in there, see what the interactions are, see what the actions are, so they can they get a basic strategy going before they dive into the game. Alright, so after each person's placing these cubes down, there is a limit to the number of cubes that can be on, or henchmen that can be on each one of these spots, and it depends on the number of players. It's listed right here on the boards. If you have 2 players, you can have up to 4 cubes, 3 players, you can have up to 5, and 4, you can have up to 7. Once you've reached that, obviously you can't place any more. Each time, as I said, you place a cube down, you get to draw a card, and then after everybody's placed all their henchmen out, whoever has the majority on a location will get to draw an extra card. So if we have a situation here, like you have 2 yellow, 2 red, and you have 3 green, green would get to draw an extra card out of that. And that would be the total of 7, the full 7 that could be on that spot. So now everybody is going to have their hand of cards. After everybody has placed all their henchmen out, now you're going to go into the card playing. And so starting with the first player, they're going to select a card out of their hand, they're going to play it, and then they're going to go to the next person on the left, and so on and so forth, until everybody has played all the cards out of their hand, or they've passed, in which case then they just go ahead and discard all the rest of the cards that they have, and the discard piles are just located in the exact same on the spots next to them, because that's important, because there's some cards that allow you to go and take cards out of the discard pile. And then you will then determine if anybody has scored 30 points. If anybody has, they will win the game. If nobody has, then you go on to the last section of the game where you total up any extra points you may have gotten, like because of the fact that after you've, like at the end of the day, like if you have troubadours that in front of you like this guy, you can earn extra points, and then you would once again check to see if somebody has won the game. If nobody's won the game at that point, then you just go on to the next day, unless it's the fourth day, and then whoever has the most points wins. Now that's a really generic overview of it, but let me just show you some of the different cards and some of the things that you can do. Now, one of the big things that you can do, well, basically there's three types of cards. There's reserve cards that you're going to place in front of you that are going to be used for later powers and later abilities. There are action cards that are kind of like a fire and forget type of thing. And then there are trump cards that you can have in front of you, which are kind of like a reserve card, but they're a very special type of card. So, like these cards, like you can see here, you have gloves, and gloves you can challenge somebody to a duel. I'll get more into duels in just a little bit, but you know, here's like a reserve card which says once per day you can earn an additional spot on a site which is already full. You'll notice that this little arrow here says that you get to turn that on its side to show that like you've used it that once time per day. Stuff like that. The main square, as I said, is where you're going to get a lot of your gloves. They're going to allow you to do certain actions that are going to allow you to, you know, get those gloves that allow you to use the weapons that are located in here, but also you know, inspire some more interactivity with, like, you know, different things that you can do and save up to use later. The church deck has some different cards, and like they have a lot of reserve cards that'll like allow you to affect certain things. Like here's the Gravedigger. Pick a card in a discard pile and add it to your hand. Choir Boys, at the end of the day, discard this card and add 1 point to each one of your performances. Holy Water, discard this card and add 1 to the value of a die roll that you make. Or here's a prayer, discard this card and re-roll a die. So I mean, there's things like that they have. And you might notice that there's this little number. When you have that number, that is the maximum number of this type of card that you can have sitting in front of you in your reserve. So you could have like multiple cards of the prayer card if you happen to get those. Now I'm going to actually dig through here, and I'm going to find the trump card just so I can show you a trump card. So here is a trump card for the church, and it says Providence. Once a day you can re-roll 1 or several dice, and you can kind of see that has that little marker there that tells you to spin it on its end. At most, you can only have 1 trump card in front of you at any one time. If you ever had a situation where you were going to get another trump card, you have to go ahead and discard the other one. So here's the trump card from the tavern. Influence. Once a day you can pick 2 cards instead of 1 in the place of your choice. So it allows you to draw more cards if you have the option. The tavern has a lot of cool little things that just kind of let you mess with other people. So here's a couple of them. Like here's some actions where it's the drunkard. Pick a card from one of your opponent's hand and then discard it. Or gossip. Your targeted opponent loses 1 point and you earn 1 point. So, you know, it's different things like that that allow you to mess with other people. Now I'm going to show you the troubadours, and then I'm going to show you the duel cards and the armory and weapon cards that are located in the armory deck, because I'm going to talk about duels here in just a second. But finally, like if you have troubadours or like, you know, jester performance cards, you're trying to get different cards of different types. So you don't want to have like multiple jesters. So you could have, like, you have this one jester, so you can have 1 in reserve, and so then you're trying to combine them with other people. If you can have up to 3 separate different kinds of performers, so let's say we had that one, and here let's get a minstrel out there. So if we had all 3 of these and we put these in front of ourselves, we'd have 3 separate different kinds, and at the end of the day we'd earn 5 points for doing so. And that's how, like, you can pull off a win, is if you can get yourself within 30, getting to that 30 points, and then if you can, you know, pull off that that final performance, then you can win the game at that point. Now here is how the duels work. Okay, so if you get a glove out of here, I'm just going to see if I can get one here. So okay, you have a glove and you play it, and you're going to challenge somebody to a duel. So you pick the person that you're going to challenge, and then you have to have a weapon. Well, technically you don't have to have a weapon. You can fight them bare-knuckled. So you can say, I'm going to duel you. And what you're going to do is you're going to like lay a weapon down that you have. So let's say you have this axe. And so you're saying a successful attack is 3 or more and defensive 5 or more. We're attacking, so we don't have to worry about the defense. Now hopefully the other person is going to have a defensive card, but if they don't, they can also use their fists. But let's say they have this round shield. And so they defend at 3 or more. So your opponent plays that card as their defense. All right. So how does a duel work? Quite simply, the attacker is going to roll 3 dice. They always, and there'll be different rules that will change this up, but normally they're going to roll 3 dice, and if they're looking for 3 or greater on their dice. So let's see what we get here. So I got a 3 and a 6. So that's 2 successes. Now, my opponent, what they're going to do is they're going to take the same amount of successes that I got, 2, and they're going to roll it against their defense, and they're going to try to get a 3 or higher on their defense. Let's see here. And so I got 2 2s. That was horrible. So the attacker has won the duel. If you win the duel, you get 5 points if you're the attacker. And the defender loses a point for every attack that they didn't defend. So then this player would lose 2 points because they failed to protect against the 2. Now, if we had a situation, just for example, let's say all 3 of the attacks made it, and we had 2 attacks that we saved against, but we failed at 1, this person would still get 5 points because they had 3 attacks that succeeded, but this person will only lose 1 point because they defended against the 2. If the defender manages to defend against all the attacks that are successful, or if the attacker doesn't get any successful attacks when they attack, then the defender gets 2 points and the attacker loses a point. And that is the duels. Duels are very quick and over pretty quickly. I mean, you can have different cards that will affect die rolls and things like that, as I showed you. But for the most part, they are resolved relatively quickly, which is good, because if you only have like a couple of people involved and there's other 2 people sitting at the table, you don't want to watch them roll dice for 5 minutes while you're waiting for something to happen. So, anyway, that is duels, and that is pretty much the game of Henchmania. If there are 2 people that score 30 points or more at the exact same time, like after the end of the day, whoever has the most points wins. If you have a tie, they will have one final duel between those 2 people that tied, or multiple people. And the 2 people if there's 2 people that tied, you will have a duel to determine the winner. If there's more than 2 people that tie, then you will play one more day to kind of determine who can get the most points in that day. And so there you go. That is Henchmania. I love games like this. I love games with tons of different cards, with tons of different powers. I love trying to outthink my opponents. I love the different ways that you can play the game. Do you want to go with duels? Do you want to go with minstrels? Do you want to just mess with people? Fun stuff like that that I really, really dug. And I really like the art and the look of the game as well. But I'll talk more about all of that in my final thoughts. Alright, thank you very much for taking the time to learn how to play the game of Henchmania. As I said, this is totally a type of game that I love. I love games of hundreds and hundreds of these cards. Well, maybe there's hundreds of hundreds, but there's well over 100 cards here. With all these different powers and abilities that you never really are sure what the other person's got in their hand and what they're going to be playing. I mean, technically, I guess, yeah, you can go through the discard piles. There's no rules against digging through that and figuring out what's there. And so they do have like a manifesto, a card list that's on the rules, and you could kind of figure out what your chances are of getting a certain card. I don't really like playing like that. I do like just delving in and come what may. If I get the card I need, great. If I don't, oh well. But there is, a cool little timing thing that goes on with the game. I didn't mention this, and I should have. The first player marker does move forward 1 tick of the clock. So if you're playing 4 players and you play all 4 rounds, each person's going to have a turn of playing first, in the turn. And obviously being able to get your worker down on a location, especially with 4 players, when there's 7 spots available, like you can just count down. So you put one down, and if everybody else follows suit, there's not going to be enough spots there for everybody else. So you, as the first player, you get the ability to make sure that if you want to get 2 cubes on one spot, you are going to get 2 cubes on one spot. And there's something to be said for that. But there is something to be said for actually getting dominance in another area as well, because of the fact that if you can do that, getting an extra card in your hand, getting that extra turn, getting even that extra weapon, that extra defense, that extra dual card can really, really make the difference, if you have more options available to you. And that's all part of this type of a game that I really like. I know a lot of people don't like direct confrontational games, I really do enjoy that. I like punching people in the nose, metaphorically, you know, in a game. And, you know, there is something to be said about when you win a game like this, it is because, not because you built a better victory point engine than anybody else, but you won a game like this because you are standing atop, you know, the bodies of your victims, if you will, or I should say your competitors, not your victims. So it's definitely a game I knew I was gonna like. I dig the art, I dig the theme, and you know, I like the whole aspect of it. And plus, because it is a game of confrontation, you don't want to last too long, and this game does wrap up in that 30 to 45 minutes area, and even quicker if somebody actually can spring up and get to that 30-point plateau faster than anyone else. So there you go. You know, if you're gonna like this type of game, lots of different powers, lots of different cards, some dice rolling, some bloodshed, if you will, I think you're really gonna dig it. So I go ahead and check out Henchmania. If you got any questions about it, just go ahead and ask away. And until next time, I'm the Undead Viking telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.